you.
Welcome back to Talking Points. President Biden wants the country to return to a semblance of normalcy by the 4th of July, but without a national reopening plan outside of the president's stated goals, state governments have taken matters into their own hands. Talking Points analyst Manny Martinez joins us now to provide more details on the national reopening effort. So Manny, what we've seen over these last couple of months is that states are really going on their own timelines. Instead of one united one, we really have 50 separate timelines. What has President Biden said on this issue, and where are we looking at as far as a general timeline for when things are going to come back to normal? And what does normal look like right now?
Vivek Murthy points out the pandemic is still not quite over.
Friends and family members, and has led to hospitalizations and prolonged symptoms for many, many more. We all want the same thing, which is to turn this pandemic around and protect ourselves and our loved ones. And to that end, our best path forward remains getting vaccinated and continuing to take the prevention measures that we know work. Wearing a mask, washing our
So Vivek Murthy points out that Americans are starting to look toward a light at the end of the tunnel. And President Biden wants American life to return to normal by the 4th of July, but there's no definition out there anywhere as to what normalcy is. What will it look like? It's the fact that Americans want to put a date on it, and right now it just doesn't seem like that is exactly possible. But there's also fatigue that might be starting to set in as well, especially among people who have already gotten their vaccines. And they might be feeling more free and ready to do more things, but perhaps they don't know as to when that might open up. So it doesn't help at all that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been put on pause either. So it says that it's been piecemeal together, 50 states, 50 different plans, and no real national organization.
So Manny, quickly, let's take a look at New York State. Let's bring it back here. So there's obviously been up and down restrictions throughout the pandemic. I believe the regulations for bars are going to be changing this week. What regulations are in place here in New York, and how are those going to change in the future?
So obviously we still have our mask mandate. That's not going to change for a while here in the state. But restrictions did start to ease last month in terms of outdoor gatherings. And also quarantine requirement went away April 10th for out-of-state travelers. So that's something. But tonight, starting tonight, restaurants and bars, they had a curfew up until last night. That was 11 o'clock each night. That is now midnight. And Governor Cuomo has just been more conservative in terms of his handling of restrictions and COVID restrictions and lifting them. And he, unlike some governors like Ron DeSantis in Florida and Greg Abbott in Texas, has taken what he thinks to be a more measured approach and has not lifted restrictions all at once.
Yeah, you mentioned Abbott and DeSantis in Florida. Now, one of the things that's been fascinating about this pandemic, as we're heading on a year of this thing, is the asymmetry of the pandemic. So what we've seen is that there are things that we can consider to be best practices, but the results of those things have been incredibly asymmetrical so far.
Yes, they have. So in Texas, the last 7 days, cases have been currently on the downtrend. And Governor Abbott there said on March 2nd that Texas would reopen at 100%. And he got a lot of flack for that. And the thing is, tomorrow marks 7 weeks since that proclamation and 6 weeks since it was implemented. But the numbers show that there hasn't been a huge spike.
In fact, an all-time low.
Right. So the state saw no real spike. And in Florida, the numbers have been consistent with numbers across the country as well. The state saw 43,000 cases in the last 7 days. That's up from 41,000 in the 7 days before that. But that's as 21% of Floridians are vaccinated and 20% of Texans are vaccinated against the virus, fully vaccinated against the virus. So I think the picture painted by those figures is something that a lot of Americans can learn from, that as restrictions are lifted, you can't go crazy. You still have to have your COVID risk mitigators in place, but you can start to do more things and live more freely as you want.
Absolutely. One of the things we've seen is that hopefully the tie between cases and hospitalizations will begin to kind of decouple as the vaccinations become more and more prominent. Totally. Obviously, COVID, an issue that's really been on everybody's mind this week and over in these coming months.